Welcome to the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, episode number 216. I'd be honored to work with Steven Spielberg, but my real challenge is to discover the next Steven Spielberg, David Permut.
Broadcasting from the back alley in Hollywood, it's the Indie Film Hustle Podcast, where we show you how to survive and thrive as an indie filmmaker in the jungles of the film biz. And here's your host, Alex Ferrari.
Welcome, my Indie Film Hustlers, to another episode of the Indie Film Hustle Podcast. I am your humble host, Alex Ferrari. Today's episode is brought to you by Blackbox. Blackbox is a new platform and community that is all about financial freedom for filmmakers like you. If you join Blackbox, you will be transformed from being a worker to being a maker of your own content. And you'll be making steady passive income from the global market. Blackbox currently allows you to upload your stock footage once, get it to many global agencies, and then allows you to share that passive income stream with your collaborators. Whether you want to submit old footage that's been sitting around in your hard drives or create brand new content, Blackbox is for you. It's really quite revolutionary. With Blackbox, filmmakers can concentrate on making great content while Blackbox takes care of all the business BS. Just visit www.blackbox.global to find out more. Well, I am back from Sundance, guys. It was an exhilarating time. It was probably my favorite Sundance of all time. And I had got some great interviews I'll be releasing over the course of the next few weeks. I'm not going to do like I did last year, one every day, because I'm just too busy. I can't do it, guys. Sorry, but you will get some good stuff coming up in the next month. Now, I wanted to let you know before we jump into this episode that I will be working on a top secret project for the next 4 to 5 weeks, and I am not going to be as active on Indie Film Hustle, the blog. But you will still get your podcast. I'm going to try to do one podcast new a week and one throwback. For the next 4 to 5 weeks. But there's a nice big surprise that you guys, I think, are going to really like when I finally release this information. But I got to keep it quiet just for a little bit longer. But trust me, it's going to be well worth it when I let you guys know what I've been doing. So I want to give a big shout out and thank you to Media Circus and Adam Bowman for allowing us to do these amazing interviews at his place at Sundance. And we're going to be doing a full series about handful of more interviews coming up in the next couple weeks. But today's interview, we're starting out with legendary producer David Permut. Now, David has produced almost 40 feature films within the studio system since 1975. Some of his great movies that I loved growing up in the 80s, like Blind Date with Bruce Willis, Dragnet with Tom Hanks and Dan Aykroyd, The Marrying Man with Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger, Captain Ron with Kurt Russell, and then Face Off with Nicolas Cage and John Travolta, and more recently, the Oscar-nominated Hacksaw Ridge, which took him, I think he said, about 15 years to get produced. And it was just a thrill to sit down and speak to a producer of his caliber. I dug in and asked every single question I hope you guys wanted to ask him. So without any further ado, here is my conversation with David Permut. Welcome to the show, guys. I'd like to introduce you to David Permut. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
You have a long and wonderful career, and we could talk for hours.
Yes, thank
about
you.
many things. You produced some of my favorite films: Face Off,
Great,
Blind Date,
thank
Blake
you.
Edwards,
Thank you,
and Hacksaw. More recently,
yeah, that was pretty amazing.
How did you get started at producing?
I saw Maps to the Stars homes on Sunset Boulevard when I was 16 or 15. I started.
Okay.
That was my first job in the business. I published the maps. So I had a kid on the corner in Holmby Hills selling Maps to the Stars homes. You know, more innocent time then. It was like
CD.
You know, today it's a little
sure.
TMZ thing, but
Sure.
Anyway, so no, I did when I moved from New York to LA. I saw these people looking at homes, so that was, I guess, my first job. If you want to consider that a job in the industry,
Sure.
selling maps. But I got very lucky. I videotaped my producing career. I mean, I started making movies when I was a kid, so 8mm movies.
Sure,
and, you know, I always wanted to be in the movie business. Not sure it was directing, writing, and I realized I have no talent as a writer or director, so I became a producer. Which is true. I revere writers and I revere directors, and I love producing. Producing kind of is the big jigsaw puzzle and putting all the pieces together, and the first person on the film and the last one off, and it's all magic. It's amazing. It's just miracles film get made, let alone well.
And in today's world, even more so.
Well, I think all the it's
Every
like
genre.
pushing boulders up mountains, but I think you could say that a lot of businesses, but the movie business is a business unto itself.
Now, what is your definition of a producer?
A definition of producer, probably somebody impervious to rejection. But I think we all have to be impervious to rejection in our life. If you believe in something or are passionate about something, you stay with it. But I mean that because, the Polka King with Jack Black, which I premiered here last year
Sure.
At Sundance, I saw this documentary based on its true story, and Jack committed to it out of the gate. Like in 48 hours showing him the doc, he basically called and said, don't you dare go anywhere. I'm born to play Jan Lewan.
Sure.
And he produced it with me, and it was tailored for him. So the script was written for him. That movie in 3 years is like lightning from the moment that happened. Hacksaw Ridge took about 16 years to get made from the moment I heard about this incredible story about Desmond Doss winning a Congressional Medal of Honor on the front lines, never touching a gun. I have a project coming up, my next project, which is 21 years of my life, a picture that's going to star Dev Patel and Ben Stiller, based on the birth of a nightclub for women in 1980s called Chippendales. But it's not Magic Mike. It's a unique story. The mob, contract hits. It's kind of Boogie Nights meets Goodfellas.
Okay.
And an amazing true story, very ensemble cast, which I can tell you about another time. But, so in answer to your question, the definition of a producer, like everything, every movie starts with an idea. And whether the idea is in the form of a script, a book, a true story, I happen to read the newspaper, an idea of mine. I'm watching TV one night, surfing. I'm watching an old TV show. And it's a black and white show that Jack Webb created. And I'm thinking, wow. And then 2 channels away is Dan Aykroyd on an old rerun of Saturday Night Live. And I'm thinking, what would happen if you took an old TV show and reformatted it as a comedy? Because I thought it was very funny. Yeah. It was a dramatic show, but every dramatic moment in Dragnet was dum, da-dum, dum,
Right.
And I'm laughing.
Right.
So maybe we could do that as a comedy, and it becomes one of the biggest grossing films of 1987. That's old history now.
Sure.
My taste is very eclectic, so I go from Dragnet to Hacksaw Ridge to Face Off to Blind Date. It's like my taste is very broad that way. But it's always about how things affect me emotionally.
Now, you've worked with some amazing directors in your day. John Woo.
Yes.
Mel Gibson.
Yes.
What do you look for in a director when you want to hire them and bring them onto a project?
Well, sometimes the first thing is, obviously, you're talking about these great talents, it's track record. John Woo was one of the greatest directors, making Hard Boiled and all the films that he was responsible for making in Hong Kong. And, and that's why I thought of him for Hacksaw Ridge initially. Mel Gibson, Oscar-winning director. You look at the body of Mel's work, Apocalypto.
That's such an underrated movie.
It is. And to me, I love Braveheart, but when I think about Apocalypto, cinematically, it's one of the greatest films ever made.
So
and those of you viewers who haven't seen it should see it.
Absolutely.
Because you can't describe it. You have to experience it.
Absolutely.
But in answer to your question, what do I look for? I see 5 movies a day every day. I see 50 movies at Sundance every year. If I don't have a film, I'm just watching movies here. It's about discovery. So it's great to work with John Woo. It's great to work with Mel Gibson. But to me, the greatest rewards in the business is to find the next John Woo, the next Mel Gibson.
Right. And
they always can be found in the hills of Sundance at this festival every year. And there's not a year that goes by that I'm here that I don't cultivate relationships with the next generation of filmmakers. And in fact, and in business with them. And an example of that is, a number of years ago, I saw Infinitely Polar Bear with Mark Ruffalo, and I thought it was an incredible movie. And when it came time to hire a writer on Hacksaw Ridge, on Polka King, it's the air, it's the
altitude. Sure.
When it came time to hire a writer with Jack Black on Polka King, Maya Forbes directed and Wally Wolodarski wrote Infinitely Polar Bear, which premiered here, which I saw. So it connected with them. So when it came time to hire a writer, director team on the Polka King, they were the obvious choice to do that, even though their film was uniquely different in tone than Polka King.
Sure.
But also the body of the work. They're major writers. They've written some other great movies, Monsters and Aliens and Diary of a Wimpy Kid. And I knew Wally when he wrote on The Simpsons, and they also made other films together. So the body of their work spoke for itself, and I went with them on Polka King.
Now, is it something that I find in Hollywood a lot that they like to pigeonhole people?
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor. And now back to the show.
Like if you just write like something like The Infinite Polar Bear, like that's all you can do. It takes someone like yourself to believe that the talent supersedes the genre.
Yeah, well, thank you. I think that's true. I think we all somehow have tunnel vision. You see a great comic. Is that stand-up going to be a great actor? Everybody, would like to do something different and broaden their careers. It doesn't mean it always works that way. But look, you look at some of the great careers that have started in stand-up comedy, as example, and translated over to great performances dramatically, as well as and the comedy. Ben Stiller's career as a dramatic actor. Yeah. So I'm always pretty much open to that. I mean, one year I was at Sundance and I saw this movie, and it was made for a nickel called Punching the Clown, and it just was wildly funny and irreverent. It's about a comic on the road, and it's probably the only time it happened. And I met the filmmakers, and I said, "Listen, maybe we can do a remake of this movie. You mean you're going to do a sequel?" I said, "Yeah, we'll get some money together." And we did, and we made a sequel. Probably the only time it happened, a sequel to a movie at Sundance called Punching Henry with Sarah Silverman, Tig Notaro, Doug Stanhope, Jim Jeffries, Henry Phillips, about a stand-up on the road. Little kind of a micro-budget film, did really well, but it started in Sundance when I happened to just stop by there in between a break from the movies at Sundance to see movies at Sundance as well. And then the short films. You look at the directors who started their careers here. It's literally it's the greatest directors of the world.
Of their generation. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So for me, where else would I be but in Sundance watching movies,
Now, being in the film business is a grind, and it can be, especially for decades. Yeah. What keeps you going? What keeps you excited?
Well, you know what keeps me excited is this next movie I'm about to see as soon as I finish our interview. What keeps me in the business, because I've been doing it a long time. They refer to me as a veteran. I go, why don't they just say old? Veteran producer. I love movies. Sure. Every night I'm in a movie theater. I am an old school guy, so I like a big screen and popcorn with a communal experience of watching movies. I know streaming and Netflix, we made the deal with on Netflix with them, because more people will see it on Netflix than I probably would have seen it on traditional release. Sure. So we went out Friday with Netflix on Polka King, so hopefully all your viewers will tune in and watch that. But what keeps me going is to see great work. So when I see a great film here, and in 10 days, I'll come back and I'll tell you, I saw greatness here. And you have to suffer through some of the films, quite honestly, to find. But it's all I'm mining for gold. And when you find that gold nugget, for me, it's inspirational. It keeps me going in the business, and I get inspired by it. I see Sean Baker a couple of years ago with what he did with Tangerine, and now he's in the running for the Oscars with Florida Project. What
an amazing movie!
And so many filmmakers. Stephen Cappell did The Land here. He's now directing Creed 2. The sequel to Creed 2 from The Land. I mean, and countless others.
Sure.
So to me, that's inspiring. And this gives me the shot of adrenaline that keeps me going throughout the next year. And then I come back here for the next shot every year.
It is a pretty magical experience. Out of all the festivals in the world, this is a very unique experience.
No doubt. I mean, I'm at Toronto every year I can, and other festivals. And I've had films at every festival, practically every festival, it seems. But this one's special. I first came here in 91, was our first film here many years ago. So I've seen it evolve over the years.
It was Slacker that year.
I think it was Slacker's around that time. Those, and then Sex, Lies, and Video.
It was 89,
You look at Glorious Bastard, you look at Quentin Tarantino, you look at all the great filmmakers. But I was here, what's that, 91? Mariachi. Right, yes.
Yeah, Robert, right.
Yeah, Rodriguez.
That was the heyday. What? That was like
it was amazing. It's equally as amazing now,
Just different,
It's just, it's a different time, different place, but there's always great films here, and that really gives me great inspiration to keep doing what I'm doing.
Now, what advice would you give a filmmaker who's just starting out in the business?
The great thing about today is technology. So when Sean Baker can get an iPhone and go make a movie as brilliantly as Tangerine, you know what? If you're a filmmaker, go make a film. Here's my camera. I'll give you my phone. You can go make a movie. I mean, that's amazing. In my day, you needed money to make a movie. I mean, I was making movies on 8mm and all that. But I mean, today you can actually make a movie. And then you have, what do you have today? You've got streaming. You've got so many avenues of getting an audience today. I mean, Justin Bieber became a fucking star. Excuse me.
It's all good.
He became a star because of his hit on YouTube.
Sure.
So, it's a very democratic society that way. You shoot anything you want to shoot and put it out there.
And the market will tell you if it's good or not.
And the market will tell you good. In my day, like I remember these guys sent out a Christmas card and they sent it to me. And I'm looking at this Christmas card and you remember what it was.
South Park.
Absolutely.
Of course, yeah, Spirit of Christmas.
That's it, man.
George Clooney just made those copies and sent it out. I'm just
saying. Yeah. So in their day, they sent that Christmas card to people in the business. I was the recipient of that Christmas card. I go, oh my God.
What did you think when you got it?
I thought these guys are geniuses, but obviously I was one of a lot of people who got the card, so I wasn't the only one saying I got to be in business with them.
Sure.
But
they've done okay.
They've done okay, and they deserve it. They're brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But that's the great thing about here. It's next generation filmmakers, actors, directors, writers, production designers. I mean, you look at some of the creative work that's being done at modest micro budgets today.
Oh yeah.
And so that's my advice in answer to your question. If you want to be a filmmaker, make a film. And get it to producers and get it to people who, or get it to agents and, you got to get it in the doors. But if you get into a festival, you get great exposure. And that's, you get it online, you get great exposure.
Everywhere, there's so many different avenues.
I'm in the shorts festivals here. I see all the shorts. The Polka King of all, because I was at a festival seeing a documentary called The Man Who Would Be Polka King.
And there you go.
Let's make the movie. So
it's that simple.
That's the great thing about the next generation. You have the advance in technology where you can go out and actually make a movie.
And my last question, I asked this of all my guests. What is the lesson that took you the longest to learn, whether in the film industry or in life?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. Walter Mirisch was one of the greatest film producers, from Cool Hand Luke to West Side Story. I mean, the endless credits to President of the Academy. And Walter told me when I was starting out my career, he said, kid, you better have patience. I got no patience. You see the rhythm in which I talk. I like it now. I like it today. I don't want to wait till tomorrow. Let's hit the ground running. Let's move. I have no patience. I didn't understand that at the time. My rhythm is like, I don't want to wait till tomorrow if I can do it today.
Sure.
But with 21 years to get this next film made, with 16 years having spent on Hacksaw Ridge, 3 was like lightning with Jack Black on Polka King, and I've got the war stories on many other projects, Face Off included, which took a long time to get made. Every studio turned it down. You've heard these stories before, but it's true. What do you mean they're switching faces?
That doesn't make any sense.
That could be pretty hokey. Well, not in John Woo's hands, but in any event, patience, and perseverance, but patience. I mean, when I say impervious to rejection, I think in life you have to be impervious to rejection. Passion is a word people use liberally in Hollywood, but I think if you're really passionate about whether it's telling a story or making a movie or whatever it is, that if you believe in something, you really, and you have the conviction to stay behind it, that's what it's all about. That's why these movies get realized here. Dreams get made and dreams get broken in the next 10 days in this city because people have put up their life on the screen, getting relatives or whatever they get to finance or divest and getting friends who do things for favors. And it's all up on the screen. And in one night, they're either on top of the mountain or they're going home with their the tail under their legs. So, there's a lot at stake for so many people who come here with their first films and their first efforts. And it's exhilarating. It can also be a devastating experience for many. But the most importantly is, look, you know what? You fail and fail and fail, constantly fail, and you have success. And you look in life, that's how it goes. You just stay with it. You don't give up. So perseverance and patience.
Fail and fail often, because that's the only way you learn.
Well, that's it. But, in life, as you said, not just exclusive to the business.
Sure.
It's life. But our business is challenging. I mean, every movie is like pushing boulders up a mountain. It's a miracle films get made. You're dependent on so many other elements to coalesce and come together. Most scripts that get developed very rarely make it to the screen. They're all paper sitting on shelves all over Hollywood, millions of dollars in development, and the small fraction of those that actually get realized on the screen. It's tough. The business has changed a lot, though, but it's changed in a good way, I think. Everybody talks about, the business is terrible, nobody's going to movies anymore. You know what? It's been a better year globally than any previous year. Box office is up. You've got, the world has become smaller. It's the Asian marketplace. It's a world business today. The North America revenues are eclipsed by the foreign revenues. That
the world's changing constantly.
The world. I mean, look, distribution, streaming. It's a different time. But you know what? It all starts with a great story.
Got it.
And that's the bottom line.
Amen.
So I always say I'm like a squirrel looking for a nut. I'm always looking for that great story, whether it's a guy who played polka and wound up in prison, whether it's a guy on the front lines who decided he wasn't going to touch a gun and stand by his convictions. Those true stories, I think, sometimes really resonate with me.
Or a guy just going on a blind date. David, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
guys.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
It was a pleasure speaking to David. He's a wealth of information. I wish I could have had him longer, but he had to run off to another Sundance screening to find the next Steven Spielberg, as he says. So, David, thank you again so much for being on the show and dropping some knowledge bombs to the tribe. And if you want links or a couple of trailers to things that he's done, please head over to indiefilmhustle.com/216 to check out the show notes. So I am off to work on my secret project, guys. I will talk to you very soon. Keep that hustle going. Keep that dream alive. And I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Indie Film Hustle podcast at indiefilmhustle.com. That's INDIEFILMHUSTLE.com.